Let's talk about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It is growing, and they call it the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, but it's actually a pretty terrible thing. We have pictures of it to kind of demonstrate the full scope of what it is. It is essentially 80,000 tons of trash floating in the Pacific Ocean, comprised of 1.8 trillion pieces of plastic. It is a result of like giant currents that seem to essentially round up all the trash and keep it going in a circle, in a gyre as it's called. It's 2 times the size of Texas, and many would argue that Texas itself is too big. What are the solutions? What do we do about it? I think we have one more. There's the graphic kind of showing you where all the gyres are in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, just the giant scope of it. There's one in the west and the east. And there's others throughout, but the Pacific one seems to be the biggest of all of them. What do you guys think? 5 words or less.
It's Amir's house.
Wow, shots fired.
We're all at fault.
We should be ashamed.
This story is garbage.
Yeah.
Literally, guys.
No, literally.
That's hashtag literally.
Literally.
Good God, yeah. What do you do with this information when someone tells you, Grace, there is a patch of garbage twice the size of Texas, it's non-biodegradable, and it's not getting smaller?
I was hoping you wouldn't pick me.
Nope, it's you, Grace.
Okay.
Oh, I've skipped you pretty much every time. Let you gather your thoughts. Now you have to save the world.
It's hard. This story, what's interesting is that tonally, it feels really immense and overwhelming, and it feels like an unsolvable problem, and yet the scientists who are researching this and what to do are oddly optimistic, although they recognize that it is the weight, the gravity of this. They basically point out that because it isn't microplastic, that because a lot of the plastic that's gathered is larger, it's more manageable, and therein lies my main question, why? I would think that if it's the plastic that is gathered is smaller, it would be easier to figure out what to do with it, and they're like, no, most of it's actually like larger, non-degradable plastic, and that's good. What? Why?
Well, because you can take a dredge and pick it up.
Yeah,
Once
so
it gets
microplastic, you can't even filter. There's no filter small enough to filter that out, basically.
Okay.
So if it's bigger, yeah, you can just take in that picture, it's like a big claw.
Right, but then where does it go? I see the claw.
Well, that's the thing about
out.
Plastic and stuff is that it doesn't ever biodegrade. So a lot of times, if it can be recycled, it can go to recycling plants. But a lot of times, it just goes to a big dump.
And what happens to the dump?
It stays there, and it grows and grows and grows.
And we literally have entered. I forget the Pleistocene, whatever scene, all those eras of history geologically that you learn about in social studies. We're in a new one, which means that we have created a new layer on top of the earth that is measurably different in its consistency because there's so much damn plastic in it.
Yeah.
We're in a new geological epoch or era. I forget, I didn't do that research before, but I just remembered an article that I read. What's the solution? What do we do?
Come on,
God, the weight of the world is now on my shoulders. It's
fix it.
Fix it, Jesus. I don't know what to do, Brett, because it's sad and it's alarming because we are doing this to ourselves. You see all these videos about global warming and the environment, and we chuckle and go, ha ha ha, it's never gonna happen. But the end is near. That sounds so morbid. So what do? Well, look, BP had that oil spill. They found a way to take care of that, right? So I'm sure that there's some engineers, scientists that are working day and night trying to figure out what's the best course of action to take to eradicate this. But I don't know. I think a solution that we can actively take care of ourselves is recycle more, use more biodegradable products, and
But how does that solve the waste that already is there? And I'm not.
That's a great question. No, we don't know.
A lot of times for this, what you try to do is find incentives for people to go deal with it. And one of those incentives is there are some initiatives that, since plastic is a petroleum product, it's a petrochemical process that makes plastic, so it's related in a very distant way to just oil. There's people go out and get that plastic and bring it back so you can burn it and make more energy. You could do some kind of initiative from the government that incentivizes companies. So you're essentially just dredging companies. You collect taxes and you say, all right, we have this money now that we can give to companies to go out into the ocean and dredge it up. What blew my mind one bit, half of this stuff that's floating around in the ocean is fishing equipment.
Yeah.
It's just, So then you could stop practices that allow fishermen to just kind of jettison whatever nets they have that are floating around. It's terrible, and I don't know what the solution is. We could reduce the total amount of plastic that we use, period. You could look into and espouse, we had Amir sent some information around that was espousing biodegradable plastics.
Yeah.
What's tricky is like some of these plastics are photodegradable, which means as they're floating in the sun energy breaks it down, but it breaks it down in such a terrible way that like it turns into these little microplastics that then get into the fish and then get into our bodies. And that's the thing is once you also remind people that the threats caused by this giant Pacific garbage patch affect your own health, then we can try to do something about it. It's very difficult, but yeah, just don't forget to recycle.
That's a great point, though, as you said, when it affects our own health, because we think if it's not affecting us directly, that we shouldn't take action. Just like with homeless people we talked about here, that because we're not homeless, why should we possibly care about people who are? You know?
And I think because we don't see it. I mean, I've been to Hawaii a few times, but you don't see it when you're flying over the ocean. It's hard to actually imagine like 600,000 square miles of garbage. I mean, LA, I wouldn't say is the cleanest place, but even here, you don't see that much garbage in one area. So yeah, it is hard to imagine how like a bottle that you're using could end up there and potentially hurt an animal, kill an animal, end up back in your body. But yeah, I mean, to me, I think the answer is gonna be new technology and biodegradable things.
And I think that comes from investment too. And I think just creating incentives and then also just investing in new technology and research and making that a priority. And then when you look at most recently the proposed bill, and that's not really what we're investing in. You know, like that's not really where, at least for the United States government, like when we like are doling out where our spending wants to go, and there's so many things that are important that require our need and our energy, and it seems that for this administration, the environment is not a huge priority. And so when you have stories like this, it feels very overwhelming because it's like there's just, we do need to invest in new technologies. We should be creating incentives and we're just not.
Yeah, for this and so many other issues, it is very important that when you are of age to vote, you go out and vote, because it's not just you've seen the March for Our Lives, those kinds of initiatives, but also the EPA has been gutted. The energy, there was a picture that went around. The energy secretary literally had a plan of action from a coal company magnate, and all the initiatives that went into place seem to reflect what this company gave him to do. It's a very big issue. Don't forget to vote, register to vote, and do all that.